Around the room here and let everybody know who's here.
Daniel
Oh,
Clemens.
I may not have been on.
You're on. Up is on. Extended is on.
Okay, thank you.
Daniel Clemens,
Looking for a light.
Security Subcommittee.
Daniel Potter, Public Works Director. Online, you've got Dean Groves, Robert Geppert, Georgia, Peggy Hall, and Chelsea.
Fantastic. Well, good morning, everybody. This is a special meeting. It's a workshop, and we're going to be talking about a request for proposal that we're going to be putting out for access control and security services in the Pelican Preserve community. In the meeting package, we have a number of items. One is the request for proposal. It's a draft that Danny put together based on some discussions that we've had as a group and based on previous documents. And the goal today is to go through this and talk about the scope of work, not necessarily every single section, because there are a lot of sections here that I think are probably best commented on by the CDD because it has to do with either legal type stuff or how they want to actually go about awarding the contract. So I think what we need to do today is talk a little bit about the scope of the work and make sure that we have an understanding and an agreement on what we actually want this contractor to do. One thing that I noticed going through this is that I had a number of questions about scope in like an overarching perspective. So before we go into the actual section 16 and 17, I was wondering if we could just talk about a couple overarching principles. If that's okay with everyone, let me just go through them pretty quickly.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I agree with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. One of the things that we have been talking about as a team is that we had a guiding principle of observe and report, and that we weren't necessarily going to ask this contractor to actually make any remediations per se, or to do anything that might be more suited to law enforcement or to first responders of some sort. Are we still moving forward with that observe and report philosophy?
This is Daniel Clemens. That is the primary function of a security service, even access control, observe and report. Responding to a situation or a condition or an incident is secondary, again, to respond, observe, and report their findings to the proper authorities as needed. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that has not changed in the security industry in over 50 years. Okay.
That's great. Yeah, that absolutely answers my question. And one of the reasons I asked was because, and though I don't normally want to do work just because of whatever happens on social media, this is going to give us, I think, a good opportunity to clarify with the community exactly what this contractor is supposed to be doing. And I'm just wondering if there should be something either in the actual scope of work, or maybe it's more appropriate in the post orders that really emphasizes that they are, they're not responders, to use your term, that they have truly observe and report. And if it's not appropriate, that's fine, but it's just something that I believe there's a really big misunderstanding in the community about.
Can you elaborate on that as to what your finding is? I mean, where you come, that information, feedback is what I'm looking for.
Oh, Facebook.
Yeah,
Social media. That's why I started the whole thing off with, normally I wouldn't do something just because of social media, but because there is that confusion, this is a good opportunity to try to clear it up when we, redo the contract and get a either different or same firm in there.
Right. Well, my opinion is I don't adhere to follow anything on Facebook because it's all individual opinions, and
right.
Everybody has an idea, and their idea is always better. The idea is to get it out, published through the PPCA to the residents, and be very clear there when they read the contract that they'll know that this is the responsibility or the duties and functions of the security access control group, to include the rover, wherever he or she may be,
right.
Whatever area we have for them. So having it at the PPCA level is more important to me than Facebook, because Facebook to me is just.
I wasn't trying to imply that we should publish it on Facebook. That's just where I've heard and seen so much confusion. And I think, and Dean can probably speak to this. I'm not sure if you're the one who actually went to the President's Council one time, but I think they were confused a little bit about it as well, if I recall correctly. So.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jennifer, and I, I agree. I think this is an opportunity to be clear, right up front, what the roles, the responsibilities of the access control contractor, vendor, what their responsibilities are. I guess my concern, though, is what is included in the term observe, and it's, in my opinion, particularly in the town center area, if we're going to add into the scope of the work that the rover, I presume, will be doing observing and reporting, particularly in the town center area. Does observe, in your estimation, include checking on the door to make sure that it's locked, making sure that the pool gates are closed and locked, and then report if they were not? Or does it just mean do a drive-by and say, I didn't see it, I didn't check it, I didn't do anything else, but it looked like it was closed, it looked like it was locked? I mean, how far does observe go?
Well, Dean, this is Bob. I guess that will be for the group to determine what you want the contractor to do, as long as it doesn't require, turning on lights, turning off lights, things like that. But you can certainly tug on the door as it's closed, you just keep on going. But to Jennifer's bigger question, before we get into the specifics of that, and the question really is for the whole community, more than even safety and security, we haven't done a good job of informing the residents of the kinds of functions that we will be performing. So short of going on Facebook to try and do that, any method that helps to communicate to our residents what safety and security or what pods or anything else is we need to do more of.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you, Jim. We have to communicate to our residents what we're doing. Now, I thought the purpose of today's is to bore down more to what Dean just said and what Danny was saying. If we're going to detail what we're going to observe and report at the town center, it's kind of up to this group to say what it is. If we go over a line, I know we'll hear about it from Chelsea or Tony, but I think it's appropriate to tug on the door, but not to go in if it's unlocked, just to note the fact that the pool door is open. Okay, that's noteworthy. And then report to the appropriate people, the next time they do the shift. I have never seen what the old 19 or 25 stations of what the security people used to do.
Yeah.
And there were a number of points, and Danny and I have talked about this a couple of times. I know there were things that they specifically did, whether they're all appropriate or not, but I would still like to know what they did in the past.
It's something, I think I think we absolutely need that. Is that appropriate for this type of scope of work, or is that too detailed?
That's more in the post orders,
Okay,
and that would be on a separate attachment.
yeah,
But getting back to the activity of the observed functions, that also would be included in the actual post order. So the basic function of security is observe and report. Secondary to that is the independent requirements by us. What additionally do we want them to do? If it means driving around checking for physical activity after hours, observe and report. Door checks, yes, that's something they should be doing for major doors, not every door in the community, such as the Brocky Center, the main door of the Brocky Center, the main door of the the Magnolia Room. And they've had that in the past because they have card access functions. Checking the lights at the pickleball court, not turning them off, just reporting that the lights are on after 10 o'clock or whatever time is determined. Right. Any activity in the pool, and we've had that after hours also. 7 o'clock is a state mandate. If somebody's in the pool after 7 o'clock, report it to whomever. It'd be KW at this point. the manager, that there's someone in the pool after hours, or local law enforcement, because it's a state violation. So that's part of observe and report. Yes, it requires a physical exiting of their vehicle or golf cart, whichever we choose, to go and check these things out. So yes, it would be in the post orders, but not in the basic RPA, request for proposal.
Okay.
So what would that list look like, Danny? Would we request that from PPCA to say what the list is of the
Yes,
checkpoints?
that would be baked. The checkpoints, we would try and Securitas has it. We don't know where it is though. They refuse to release it. Now, the other company, the company that's in there now, they also have the points. They just didn't have the equipment from the other company to go check them out. But there is a list that's maintained somewhere in that building that I need to go in there and just rip it apart and find it. The guards, the Rover definitely knows what it is, and I've spoken to him.
Mhm.
And he can actually drive me around, show me all the points. And we can add to it or eliminate. My thing too is, what are the assets of the CDD that you want to be checked? And at what time frame? From 6 at night to 6 in the morning? Do you want it 24/7? But having a individual working there, that eliminates the day shifts, in my opinion, but that's something we can discuss further. But I will take it, meet with the Rover on the 4 to 12, because he's very, very knowledgeable and responsible, and try and identify all 26 locations. And that will help develop this program, this document, knowing what was there in the past and what we need to eliminate and or add.
Okay, because that's getting to where I was going with some of these questions, is I didn't have a feel by looking at this of that kind of detail. And some of it, yes, I understand should be in the post orders, but some of it, I think the contractor who wants to bid should have an idea at least of the magnitude of the scope, because that might change the number of people that they request and the charges, et cetera.
I understand. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's in here. In my mind, it's in there because I remember reading it and writing and transposing it. But I was on a plane when I was doing most of it, so.
I understand. Maybe I just didn't catch it, or
Yeah,
I read it a different way.
I mean, yeah, I can locate it
Okay,
while we're here, while we're discussing.
okay, no problem. And in the past, we had been trying to get away from the word security. And I see security back in here. And I assume that was very deliberate, and maybe because I don't have the background in security that you do, Danny, can you explain to me what the difference is?
Okay, there are
Because to
two,
me, security is
On
more,
Jennifer, which document are you? Because
oh,
I'm sharing screen. I want to make sure that the people on the other side.
oh, okay. It's the
Okay.
request for proposal. The title is actually Access Control and Security Services.
What page?
Oh, cover,
Cover.
sorry. And maybe this is just an education for me, Danny, but I want to make sure, because I know that's a buzzword as well, for
Okay.
me as well as others.
okay, well, in the security industry,
Yeah,
security is broken down in two portions:
okay,
access control and security functions, not counting administrative and supervisory. The security functions are anything outside the access control forum that an employee would be doing. So, and for security purposes, that's the observe and report function when they're on
okay,
patrol. That's not access control under.
got it.
So security is securing the neighborhood by even checking lights. You're securing to see what's going on. The pool.
Okay, I think you've answered my question. Thank you. Okay. I didn't realize that that security was observe and report in the security industry. I thought it was much broader and more, more physical than that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't require the physical. That's another function of security is physical, but in our case, in most security groups, you don't get involved in anything.
Okay,
No
that helps.
personal interaction unless it's upon yourself to defend yourself.
sure, sure. Okay, that helps. That helps. The next, let me just pause. Did anybody have anything else on that? I just have two more questions, so it'll be fast. I hope. The second one is, we're going to make sure that the PPCA is included in this. I assume you've talked to people in the PPCA about this, or in KW, or
I took that upon myself as an assumption that
Okay.
this is what this whole thing was about, is combining the two,
Yeah.
incorporating both entities into one document, whatever the additional cost, if any, would be incurred. That avoids any issues between anyone. Well, is the PPCA notified, or they talk to the CDD, or they both agree upon it? So that's why I think we're talking about this. I put
Yeah.
both in there, and I specifically wrote it down that way.
Yes.
And we can change it as needed, but I
Okay.
feel that both entities need to be intimately involved in this and the one contract, so there's no misconception. Well, the CDD wants me to do it this way, but they don't want me to do this under this side of it, and the PPCA doesn't want me to do it because it doesn't involve our property.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree, but I just wanted to understand what how they've been included so far. It just means we have to go and chat with them. That's all.
Correct. This is an initial document draft
Gotcha.
to be discussed by the PPCA and CDD and us, or
Okay.
leave us out.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else has any comments.
Well,
regards to that.
no, but like one of the things that should be a community kind of decision is whether we're looking for the rover to tell somebody the garage door's up, that kind of stuff.
Correct. That would come from the PPCA forum.
Yeah, and I totally agree, and I've had a couple of conversations with Faye, so that somebody might become designatee to you know, with this group to
Mhm.
figure out the do's and the don'ts, what we want to have done, and et cetera. So, yeah, it's got to be a collaborative effort.
Okay. And do we
Can I-
have that person yet? Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I chime in
sorry.
real quick? This is Chelsea.
Yeah.
So ultimately, just so we can take a step back and understand what the process will be, because it's not the process that was done in the past. So you all, in conjunction with the community association, are working on the scope, right? The meat and potatoes of what you want the security contract to be. Once you guys believe that you're complete with that, we will plug in that scope into our template RFP document that we have. Tony will review that as well as staff and make sure, you know, we're not crossing any district lines or whatnot. Now, one of the decisions that you all have to make is, do you want it to be strictly low bid? Or do you want to create a selection advisory committee, i.e. the Safety and Security Subcommittee, and maybe an appointed person from the community association to review the bids and come together at a public meeting of a selection advisory committee and recommend up through the chain of who you would recommend to be the winning bidder, most advantageous to the district. So that decision needs to be made, because that will determine how we tweak the template of the RFP. The RFP will be solicited by Randy, our contracts manager. It'll be put out on DemandStar. And then the bids will be received by the district, not the committee or the community association, et cetera. So that's the process that we'll be taking.
That sounds great, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Danny. I agree with that. I concur. Let's put it that. Yeah, that's the way it should be. We're not looking for the lowest bidder. We want the best product provider to serve
Now-
our community.
Now, Danny, to your point, so with that, that criteria, so, you know, typically you have that criteria equal 100 points. You can choose to weight, you know, pricing as 50 points and qualifications as 20, as, you know, past experience with the district. That all is up to you on how you would like to rank or review those bids that come in. So that's another component that your committee will have to decide on how you want to evaluate those bids and the weight to each category.
Well,
Okay,
Chelsea,
This is Danny. Would you be able to provide us with that ranking?
We can give you samples of what we've done before, and if you choose to weight, you know, certain categories heavier, you're more than welcome to. You have that option.
Okay,
Chelsea,
yeah.
don't we always have the choice of selecting? We don't have to take low bidder on any contract with any time, whether it's ponds or landscaping or anything else. I mean, why would this be different, or is it different?
What's the saying Tony always says? The most responsible bidder,
Right.
most advantageous
Right.
to the district. But if you want to just leave it as that, I kind of go back to how are you evaluating those bids and how do you justify that? And that's where, setting that criteria helps for transparency purposes, and it helps give, direction to the selection advisory committee. That way you get the input, because otherwise, you're reviewing them for, did they check all the boxes that were required for the bid? Yeah, they do. Well, this one's the low bid, this one's the not. You have to justify why you're not going with low bid. And that oftentimes can be rebutted. Whereas if you had, clear criteria, there's just different options. Again,
I understand what you're saying, but I'd hate to get locked into a point grid that said we had to select somebody if the overwhelming feeling of the most responsive, even if they weren't the lowest. I'd like that kind of a decision be made by the collective group that we established.
Yeah, again, they have the decision if they want to do low bid or most advantageous to the district, or if they want to have a selection advisory committee with an evaluation criteria. So that's up in the air for the Safety and Security Committee to decide on how they want to proceed.
Okay.
But yes, Danny, we do have some examples that we can give you for criteria selection that we've done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
And Chelsea, just a quick question regarding that experience with the most advantageous. Have you ever, in your history with the district, had any bid protests?
We've had one bid protest since I've been here, and where the board decided not to go with the low bid, and
Yeah.
they provided justification why they chose not to. That vendor had experience with the district, et cetera. But we still had to go through the bid protest process, and it did end up costing the district some dollars.
Dean, in my 15 years, I only know of that one also.
Yeah, but things are a little different now, and I think it's important to understand that if there are some subjective considerations in determining most advantageous, I was just curious what the experience has been, and if you've only had one bid protest, which you prevailed on, I presume.
Yes.
Yeah, then it's good to know. Thank you.
Hey, Ted has joined us.
Yeah.
Didn't know the meeting was moved.
Ah,
You pass that down. Okay, we were just going over some preliminary information in terms of scope. And
Okay.
I think we're about, if I'm not mistaken, we're about ready to jump into section 16. I did get some feedback. Danny, I don't know how you'd want to do this. But I have the feedback. It's not in the document that's up on the screen, anything in blue. I don't have a color printer.
Oh, okay.
So I apologize. And these are just my notes because I finally understood something here. But anyway, how do you want to do this? Do you want to just go through it? I can read the comments and what have you, because I'm.
Yeah,
familiar
you
with
can,
them.
then
And then-
I'll respond to them.
Okay, and then, you're gonna be taking notes, it looks like. If you can get it updated, okay, terrific. I can send you this.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Yeah, to get you started. Okay. I think we're ready to go into section 16, which is the first of the two sections of the scope. Anybody have anything they want to talk about before we jump into that? Okay. If we could move maybe the document to section 16, scope of work. There are actually two sections with the scope. And I think this is where we're going to get into a lot of the discussion of some of the things we were talking about in the introductory portion. So hopefully that's going to help us get through the discussion a little faster. We'll see. Oh.
All right, and number the pages. Okay, we go.
That's
There you
okay.
go.
All right, so in this first section, implementing owner's security objectives. Do you see where everyone see where it says that? The owner's security objectives. The question is, where are these listed? And is it,
That's us. What our objective, what we want them to do.
I understand that, but where in the RFP is that?
Okay, we have to, that have to be an attachment, so it has to
Okay.
be added there as an attachment to that section, to what that statement.
Okay, that answers my question. Attachment to be added.
And that's what we talked about earlier. We want them to check doors, we want them to patrol, what specific
Okay.
sites we want them to look at. So that's more, gonna be an attachment.
Okay, good. Okay, that helps. And then at the end of that, I just had a question about the specifics about what was in scope and how to change the scope. Because we're saying that the policies and procedures would not necessarily be limited by the bullets below. They can be changed, but should there be a process or something that says this is how we'd actually change it? Is that in the post orders? Is that, how would we go about changing it?
Well, there's a format to making changes to the post orders. We'll make
Okay,
it
so the changes would be done in the post order.
correct,
Gotcha, okay.
not unless it's a contractual change. Now, see, there's two aspects of this. If there's a contractual change where it changes the cost of the contract because of an additional access
Mhm.
control person or rover or changing of a vehicle, that's a contractual that has to happen between all parties. In the post orders, it would just be in addition to the post orders, which the owners have a right to request from the contractor.
Right.
In a meeting,
Okay.
that's all it would take.
Okay,
In a
that's just what I was-
basic request, but I'm gonna make a comment.
Yeah,
The document that's presented in front of us does not match your document.
it does not?
No. So if you look at the one in the computer, it stops at general task, yours continues on.
Well, that's because that was a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I take it back. Okay, that's your
Yeah,
comment.
anything in blue
It's
is
what you
stuff
added.
I added
Okay.
either because I had questions or people who submitted comments had
Okay, I
questions.
stand corrected.
No, it's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Ted?
No,
Okay. All right. And the first bullets, we had an input to add the word gate before access control.
That's fine. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. And then
do you want to add bicycle to that?
that came, maybe, that came up and some had that addition in bullet 1, 2, 3, 4 at the very beginning. Should this also include bicyclists and
The
pedestrians?
reason I left that, this is Danny speaking,
Okay.
Daniel again. The reason I left that out, and I shouldn't have left pedestrian, you know, right now, there is no access control for pedestrians or bicycles or even golf carts.
Right,
It's free reign,
right.
you know, it's something that we can discuss further. My thoughts were, and I think, but it's a CDDS, to have gates at each of those entries. So they couldn't get through, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, that's
To
fine.
go through, but right
Yeah.
now, I don't see us looking at stopping pedestrians or cyclists
Yeah,
going through.
you're right. That would be cumbersome.
Yes,
Well, is it, this is Dean, and I understand it, having gates would be pretty extensive, but particularly, after hours, nighttime, when we get people who may be coming in, on the sidewalks or over the fences for that matter. If there's somebody that's coming into the community by the front entry, I would think that we would want to have, want to know who those people are. And, not necessarily with a gate, but with someone going out and say, hey, stop, I need to see your ID, or where are you going? That kind of thing.
I think that creates more of an unwanted confrontation or interaction between the access control person and a visitor.
Yeah.
Then I don't see them getting out there before a cyclist or a golf cart comes through on the sidewalk or even a pedestrian to stop them. And what's going to say that person is going to stop and obey? I think it's going to cause unnecessary interaction between individuals. That's just my opinion based on the current security or access control procedures we have in place to date.
And from a staffing point of view, I think the thought is one person in the guardhouse at night and one person in the roving vehicle.
That's correct. So we don't have the person power to do that.
Dean, one thing we might consider, because I think to have a gate for a pedestrian would be That would be ugly, but anyway, maybe put in motion sensors and lights so that if somebody is walking in or coming on the sidewalk in a golf cart, at least it would be highlighted. It would light up. Maybe connected to a camera in the shack.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
But we got to keep cost in mind, and if we
It's
put
not-
in gates in the sidewalks, they just walk around the gates and come through where the vehicles go.
Is that something we would do? Our committee would do? Is that something we would be asking the contractor to do? Because that's kind of important in terms of timing and cost to the contractor and cost to CDD.
But
I
I
would think that would be us. If
that'd be
we-
us. Contractor would not be
Yeah.
responsible for motion
Okay.
sensor lighting or access control
So-
stuff.
That's something, if that's gonna be in the scope, that's something we need to consider, unless we want to do something like what you were talking about earlier, Dave, where it would be a change of scope later on.
It could be, but again, this would be a joint conversation
Sure.
with the district and us as we wanted to go that far.
So just leave it in here now, and we can talk about it as we go through the process?
Yes, I would
Okay.
table that at this point. I think Daniel has.
Can I inject
Oh,
real
I'm
fast?
sorry,
Daniel Potter.
absolutely.
I've had conversations with a couple of security companies and they are offering to provide some of those items at this point. You just have to scope it into the contract.
Okay.
So then with some of the electronic boxes so that people can punch their stuff in
Right.
on site, some of the veils, some of the security measures inside the gates. So as long as it's captured in the scope, they will bid towards doing
Okay.
those items.
That enhances the
Yeah.
bid process for us.
Yeah, because that was one of the items, Bob, remember when we met with Securitas,
Mhm.
one of the new things that they're starting to get
Yeah.
in there, some of the security measures that are added, some of the gates, including the arms and for gating and how they stop people from coming in and out.
Okay, thank you.
Alright, that's great. You can put that in there?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else on that?
Nothing from Daniel.
Okay, the next one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Bullet number 7. At the end, someone requested to add at the end, including RV lot, outdoor pools, tennis courts, and other amenities.
So, this would be in the roving patrols.
Mhm.
Yes,
What's this? Town center buildings, properties. I left it as a generic. And I think that would be another attachment because we would actually spell those out. So this is just a generic scope, and
Yeah.
then the attachment would be more specific as to what we request them to do. Otherwise, it gets convoluted in here with so much in one area and they forget. So they look at an attachment that's more directed towards the requirements.
so long
This
as
captures
it's,
the
I identified someplace that it's part of the scope of the work, an attachment is fine as far as I'm concerned.
Right, it is part of the scope, but it's a separate document in the whole, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Danny. I'm just saying, just so that there's no misunderstanding, when we say here, town center buildings and properties, the attachment says, and that includes more than just, just the town center building. It includes Brocky Center, it includes the pool, it includes this, includes that.
Correct, and it would include the pool at Palazzo, the pool at Casella, because that's, even though they're CDD properties, not CDD, they're
They're
PPC HOA properties, that'd be something we'd want them to look at, like I say, 7 o'clock is the pool time. And if that's the case, somebody's in there, they would notify the gate and the morning, who else? KW would notify the president of the company that you have people in the pool after 7 o'clock, so on, that type of thing.
But isn't that getting a whole different entity involved? Because when you think about who owns property within the Pelican Preserve boundaries, we're talking about CDD and PPCA, and now you're getting involved some COAs and neighborhood COAs and HOAs. Does that mean we have to get those folks involved with the discussions?
That would be just a notification. That's
Just a
just
notification
the
saying,
notification that somebody was let's take Palazzo.
yeah,
During a nighttime patrol, 3 o'clock in the morning, they saw the lights on, they heard activity going on. By law, they can't. So they get a notification from KW that there was activity in the pool past statewide times.
Yeah, my question, I think, is that I understand why you're saying KW, but it's not their property.
But they,
I mean, they're not managing that property.
oh, I see what you're saying.
It could be Castle, it could be Shoe, it could be, you know.
Well, I think as part of the master, it would be our responsibility to notify somebody if we saw a violation, unless I'm wrong.
No, I like where you're going with it. I'm just questioning maybe why would we tell KW? Because they might just say, not my property. And then maybe they won't say that. Maybe they'll say, oh yeah, no problem. I'll make sure that the appropriate property manager knows, but I'm just asking that because that's pretty different than what we had in the past. I remember.
Yeah, when we formed the working group, which includes, of course, PPCA, they'll give us guidance as to how they should handle that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're cognizant of the fact that this is slightly different.
Right, okay, I see your point. Yeah.
Okay.
I just look at it differently, but that's,
Well, I like where you're going with it. I'm just thinking about whether we need to add another group. in.
because my opinion is that would be one of the points we'd be checking is the end of Palazzo, because that's adjacent to, what's the name of it, next door? The development next door. that they-
Yeah, I know.
Plantation.
Plantation, so that's an area we want them to observe.
Oh, yeah.
control. So being there, again, that pool area is an area of concern.
Oh, I agree.
Whether
Absolutely
it's ours or the CDDs, or it's within the scope or the properties of Pelican Preserve.
Yeah.
So a generic notification, whomever it may be to, needs to be made by, I would think KW will make that notification after reading the report. They would get it. Well, now they ask this, would KW property manager get a copy of any incident reports that occur?
They're supposed to.
Sure.
Everyone's supposed to. So at that point, being the general property manager, I don't see it being an issue that they would make a notification to management or somebody else that we
Mhm.
found a violation, because if there's a violation anywhere in the community, regardless if it was on a COA property or not,
Mhm,
it's handled by KW.
mhm.
So I don't see that being any different.
Okay, I'm just raising an issue
No,
because I
it's a
thought it.
good point of
different.
discussion.
Okay. Anything else on that?
I just one comment to that. So whoever is gonna be the point person, if it's Danny, you to have a conversation with the community association, I would find out what they're willing to do. Because
Absolutely.
they may not be willing to convey that, but are they getting the inspection reports? You put that in the post orders, you make that a requirement of whatever vendor you select, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next, okay, I don't have any comments or inputs from anybody until K. So does anyone have anything they want to comment on between where we are now and K?
Do you want typos and misspellings and all that addressed? Or-
Probably not, because there were a number of them and
Oh, okay. I'm just,
maybe.
I'm not being,
Three Bloody Marys.
Yeah.
I'm not being critical. I just,
Oh,
I
no,
just
I
I just
understand.
wondered.
We've got, yeah, there are a few typos and
Okay.
incorrect apostrophes and things, but
I don't want to nitpick. Just
We gotta be in English, what can I tell you?
Okay, well, there are plenty of people who are happy to help with that kind of stuff.
Go at it.
I'm one of them. Okay, any scope comments between where we are now and K? All right, now this was my comment and I suspect I know what the answer is from the discussion that we've had up till now. But for this one, it's just, for this general comment here, for K was where are these terms outlined? And now I understand how you were putting this together, so I'm assuming that's gonna be an attachment or
Okay,
K,
yes, that'd be an attachment,
okay.
but in my opinion, it has to be spelled out specifically that that's what they have to do.
Yeah,
Even though under contract and under policy, they have to have those documents. But it needs to be inside the scope, so they don't say, well, I didn't see it there.
yeah. Okay, and then I had anything else on K from anybody? I had the same thing for L. I'm consistent, but now I understand where you're going with all this, so I assume that's gonna be an attachment as well.
Yes.
Okay,
because they're required to train their employees and have a
Yeah.
document that they have been properly trained, not just bring somebody in and say, okay, you sat at the front gate and I get trained. No, that's not the training. The training is.
Agree, agree. All right, anything else on L? The next comment I had was in section 17, so anything else on section 16? Before we move to 17?
Okay, this is Dean. Could I just ask a quick question? Back in section A, the last bullet, response to any reported, observed, or otherwise handled life safety or any incident within the PPCA properties. So, you know, again, I see people complaining about altercations with KW employees in the pool area,
Mhm.
typically on the weekends. But if something were to be going on the weekend and the rover is there, do they get called for an altercation, or are the police being called?
The individual involved should notify the police. That's a police action. My understanding is the guards or the rover is not to be called for any type of issue relating to physical contact.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm just curious. I just want to make sure that others are too.
I think we ought to spell it out. You're right.
Yeah, and that could be spelled out. That can, that may be, we should put that more, put some clarity in that they're not to be called for. I don't know how we could word that, but figure some way to get that in there. The rover's responsibility is not for a response to physical incidents.
Direct
Mhm.
all
Or the- or
emergencies
any-
to local law enforcement.
Correct.
Or
I
any-
like it.
Any PPCA rule violation. We're not getting in the middle of any of that.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, no, we would, and I'll go back to the pool issues where it's, what, if it's a pool that's occupied after 7 o'clock and there's activity.
Oh, I meant during the day. I'm with you.
Oh, during the day, okay. We definitely do not want the rover to get involved in any type of issue like that, even to throw somebody out of the pool. Observe and
Nope.
report. That's what he or
Correct.
she should be doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I threw some people out of the pool, some young kids, because they were just throwing the stuff into the pool, but I took it upon myself to throw them out.
Okay. What else? Anything else in section 16?
No,
All right.
good.
Let's move on to section 17. then.
And I just want to
Yeah.
back up to that last bullet and that we just talked about life safety.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
They're not required to respond to every time an ambulance comes in, but if they happen to be there, you know, happen to have time, or they happen to be at the front gate when they come in, they should, they don't have to follow that ambulance in or make sure it's not a fire or something like that, and then resume patrol. And you should make a notation of it that they did that. So basically, that's what that's saying. Response and reported, observed, or otherwise handled life safety or other involving properties identified to include fire department response, fire, EMS, or police response in an emergency situation. It's very rare that they come in with lights and sirens. But when they do, that, to me, that's an emergency situation.
Yeah.
When they do that. So if the rover is available and observes it, he or she should proceed to that location just to observe to see what's going on and then resume their duties. And I can write that a little bit clearer in that.
Okay.
If everybody agrees, or
Yeah.
just disregard it.
No,
I
the
like it.
rover or the supervisor if it happens during the daytime where we don't have a rover.
Well, if we don't have rover, there's no need for a response, obviously. We
Well,
only, but during the daytime, we have enough notification, enough people around that it would get back to the KWs or the
Okay.
CDs of the world, you know. It's during the time that there's a lack of response personnel.
Okay.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay, I think that sounds good. All right, then let's move on to the next section, which is section 17. First question has to do with section B, number 1, and that is why only evening and overnight?
Will?
Does the roads go around? during
No,
the
we're
day now?
not looking, I think we mentioned it,
Did we?
eliminating the daytime rover,
Okay,
because the CDD is gonna have a full-time employee on site.
Pretty much.
So they're basically, right now, the
Okay.
rover's responsibility is to oversee, monitor CDD assets. So with my opinion, is we don't need a
Oh,
rover
okay,
to, if he's not monitoring anything, if he's not doing anything with CDD.
And the other thing is the town center is fully staffed.
Yes.
I mean, so there's not much they should do up there during daylight hours.
all right, that makes sense.
And this gives us an opportunity to, if we want additional services, we can pay for, order,
Yeah,
change the post orders or whatever as needed.
okay. Okay,
And that's just
I'm-
projected time, 6 to 6. And this affords the agency to have a 12-hour shift instead of 24. So only get back 50% cutting back. Saves us money, enhances the security of access control. in the community.
okay, gotcha, okay. And this last one, I now know the answer to. This last one was mine. Okay, those were all the comments. Anybody have anything else in section 17?
I think
I-
Danny did a great job of putting this together.
Yeah,
I just want to go back to
Absolutely.
option B. If you go up there, to answer your question about the attachment,
yeah,
I spelt it out in the contract right here. It identifies all the locations.
okay, so should we take
Parking
a
lot,
second?
pools, town center, restaurants, destination flip flop, Rocky Center, fitness center, bocce course, tennis facility, course, pickleball, softball, butterfly garden, stuff like that.
Well,
Or,
Danny, a question for you, because it always confuses me when I would see the Rover over by the Winn-Dixie parking lot, or someplace off Pelican Preserve property. That was part of their checkpoints, that they would go to those commercial areas as well. Am I misinformed?
I thought, Daniel may be able to correct me. I believe that has been eliminated. We don't own those properties. CD doesn't own those properties anymore. The properties in the front at the Colonial Boulevard side of Pelican,
Winn-Dixie Shopping Center.
2 malls.
No, they're still labeled in LIPA as CDD.
So
Wow,
does that mean, does the CDD want them to continue to patrol that? And if so, for what purpose?
I don't see it. Control it. It's not like they're going anywhere.
Exactly, right.
Um,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I've taken it out, because
And to be honest, if there's a light out of something or something's hit it, but trust me, I'm the first one that gets notified
Yeah.
normally, so it's not gonna be by the security guards.
exactly. So so that would be, there's no need for that any further. But as far as the parking lot Winn-Dixie, that was an opportunity for them to go get gas at the 7-Eleven.
Okay.
Allegedly. Or maybe grab some pizza from the pizza joint there and relax off property. So this would eliminate them being off property, and that's why part of the document, I said either a gas driven or electric powered golf cart enclosed or a vehicle, preferably a golf cart that can be recharged during the day shift.
Mhm.
Because they're not,
And it might be considerably
not
cheaper.
emergency response vehicles, and having an enclosed golf cart would keep them weather related issues that they can get around.
And it would be considerably cheaper.
A heck of a lot cheaper.
mm-hmm,
Okay, thank you.
that
Okay.
helps. Anything else? Okay, so this is the list of what we want them to patrol in the town center. So this is different, or it's a subset of what we were talking about in terms of maybe the pools at Palazzo, et cetera. That would be what was on the front.
Town center,
There was something in the very beginning of the document in, where is this? I think it was in the description of the community. Yeah,
PPCA,
owner's background,
Owner's
section
background.
3. So this would be the overarching scope in terms of,
what the community is about.
right, that's what the community is about. But we were saying that in section 17. B? No, where was it? Oh, B. Section B. That was what we wanted them to patrol within the
Well-
town center area. I'm just looking at what else do we
Yeah,
want them to
It's
patrol
all
around?
gonna be subject to this, the subgroup in
Yeah.
conjunction with PPCA, what they want. This was just Danny's starting option, I think. That's
The
why I-
entire community,
Alright.
the entire community, to include all community streets and access issues of concern observed in common areas.
Uh-huh. Understand.
That's all the cul-de-sacs, all the circle, all the roundabouts.
Okay, I understand.
I mean,
Alright,
I may have put it all into one statement that can be changed out, subdivided.
Okay, that's fine. Well, then is the next thing we need to talk about who would be on this little subcommittee that would flush this out? And how we're gonna get members that are not, from organizations who are not here today to participate.
What organizations would that be? Can we identify each of them?
Yeah, so we have our team. We have KW. We have the PPCA, the CDD. Who else do we need from the discussions we've had?
Do we want to find?
Any
Go ahead.
HOA representation from Casella, for example, for their pool or
Palazzo?
Palazzo?
Okay. Are those the only two HOA, COAs that are involved?
That have an entity that would be needed for observation, yes.
Okay,
Because we're not interested in parking lots, that's like for Sienna, that's Sevilla. No, Sienna,
Sienna has the.
that's their own parking lot, they handle it, no
Yeah,
no need.
it's private property and all that.
Here, can I just give one comment to that? So what I would recommend is getting from those two private HOAs, some type of letter on their letterhead saying, they're authorizing the observation and reporting of their pool area, and then that they provide a contact directly, either their management company or whomever. And that way there's a direct report, but it's the responsibility of that HOA to keep that contact up to date if they wish for that service to be provided.
I personally don't see they have an option. I mean, if an observation is made that there's a violation of law going on at a specific location, I don't need the violator's permission to report it.
No. The HOA owns the pool, correct?
Yeah.
And so we'd want some authorization from that HOA that giving the district and the roving patrol to, observe and report, and here's the reporting mechanism. Who are you contacting? Who are they full circle reporting back to? Because I don't anticipate KW want to have that additional responsibility.
Okay, so just spelling out specifically that they would be the point of contact for handling that issue.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else that we need on the sub team?
Is just a question, well, no, not regarding the sub team, I'm sorry.
I have one more question so the main road going into Palazzo, who owns that? Is that ours? Is
The
that
district.
The
The district, yep.
So we don't need Palazzo to tell us that we can't patrol and observe. We just need
No.
them to say that they don't mind for us to check their pool and notify them.
Correct.
Correct.
Oh, that's
We
what I
have
wanted
that
to
entire
know.
road, Danny, all the way
They
down to the
can't tell, they
cul-de-sac.
can't tell me not to patrol. That's my point.
No, they cannot.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. Now, Danny, would you be the one pulling this group together to do this work?
Sure.
Okay.
This way, if you put Daniel, it'll be one of us.
Who knows? We might be lucky and get 2 Daniels on this team. So you'd be safety and security. And then you'll contact KW, PPCA, Casella, Palazzo. And then from CDD, is that the other Daniel
Yes.
participating? We get 2 Daniels. Okay,
Chelsea might weigh in too. We'll see.
that's cool.
That's fine. DNC.
You know I will.
Excellent. It'd be outstanding. Okay. What else do we need to do today what else do you need from us, Daniel? Number 1, Cummins.
I need for this document to be put into a Word document and corrections made now, so we have one document going forward. Because what we've seen in the past, the documents were changed and they were not up to date when they hit the screen. So I can't do it. I'm only good at typing stuff. I'm not good at fixing it.
Okay,
Well-
so
Go ahead.
we have a SharePoint site that I can hang this on, and it's a cloud-based item so that everybody can access it across the board and update it. So there's not 5 versions of the exact same document.
That's what I'm looking for.
I have already converted this document over to a Word document. So I will hang that in the SharePoint site and we'll share that link to everybody. It'll be a blind CC email with the link to it to everybody on this committee.
Okay, great. That helps me a lot because well, like I said, one document didn't look the same to me, but you explained it why.
I made a couple of updates, so I remembered all the input that I
Yes.
had received. And then what I can do is I can go into that SharePoint site. I won't put the updates where there were questions basically for me. Now I understand the answers, but all the changes I'll put in there and I'll correct some typos along the way, and Ted will jump in and can help too, and whoever wants to help.
Sorry. It's just my nature.
I understand.
I
I
mean-
understand.
I like to edit.
Go right ahead.
Then you can be our proofreader.
Yeah, that would be a good role for me.
Okay, official proofreader. All right, what else do we need to do today, folks?
Nothing
You
from
don't need
me.
anything
I
else
have
from us?
nothing.
Anything else from the district?
I think that you need to start thinking about your weighted selection criteria and what that weighted criteria is going to look like.
Okay.
Because you're going to have to put together a formal matrix there. So that for the selection committee, when they go through and actually evaluate proposals that are received, that they've got a weighted metrics that they stick to, and that'll cover us if we do decide to go with somebody that's not the lowest bidder. So formalizing what that looks like needs to be a part of this as well.
Okay, I think Chelsea says she's gonna send that out to me. Well,
She's going to send you
the
templates of what they've looked like in the past,
But
but
then we'll put it together.
collectively you
Daniel.
need to come up with what that's going to
With the
look
weight
like and how you're going to weight those items.
Okay.
Daniel, let's drop in that SharePoint that you've got, one of our RFP templates so that they can see it and understand what the skeleton of the RFP looks like, and then what their scope plugged into that looks like. And then that should have the criteria in there.
Yes, ma'am. I'll give it to Randy and make sure we've got the most current templates.
Perfect.
And I'll drop it into the same folder. So I'll give you all access. You have access already, but I'll make sure you all have access to that specific folder and give you the link to that specific folder. All the attachments for this item as well. So you'll have all the scope plus the attachments, and then you'll have a place to put everything all in one shop.
Thank you. Big question.
I got to just say, I'm still not 100% sure, me personally, on the weighted criteria versus, the most responsive and all that other language. Given the 2 choices, I don't know, I personally don't see the need for the weighted criteria. It just seems like a lot of work.
What do you mean 2 choices?
I'm sorry? Oh, the
You
choice
mentioned-
between
say
going
two
with the
choice-
weighted
two
or going
choices.
with the standard that we always do. And it's up to the group to decide who they're gonna pick and why and justify it.
Well, that's the part of the justification, Bob, is if you have the weighted criteria matrix, the decision-making matrix, then that justifies it. That is your justification, and it's formal across the board. Everybody comes to the selection meeting with that.
Maybe
in
I'm just a
hand.
curmudgeon. It's something new, and it just looked like an extra step of a process that heretofore I wasn't familiar with. I'll be quiet.
One last question, timeline.
Good question. Started drawing one out. No joke.
Coming
Because-
faster than you think.
That's what I.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was. Because I have from your document that, we have-
180 days or something.
I don't remember the number of days. I did it by month. When the contract was awarded, when the start of the contract was, when the post orders were due and this sort of thing. But basically, what I don't have on here, which I probably should have put, it's a scribble on a Post-it for people who can't see it. But I was just trying to think through it in my own mind. I think it comes out in May, correct?
I believe
So
it
when's
is
the end of the term of the contract?
September 30.
So end of the
September 30th.
fiscal year.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, when the RFP goes out.
No, I know. I'm
Oh, I'm sorry.
backward planning from
Oh, you're
back, from
planning.
that, all the way backward from
Gotcha.
that.
It's actually in the document. I think I.
So it's the end of the fiscal year. So I would say at least back at 120 to 90 days out, because you're gonna have to solicit for 30 days, 15 to 30 days. Then you're gonna have selection criteria where everybody's gonna have time to actually review said proposals and make a decision. Then it's gonna have to be recommended up through the pipeline.
Goodness gracious.
Attorney
And
review.
you're talking about for the attorney review and everything else. And then selection by the board
Okay.
saying yes, from
Yes,
you to
sir.
P-PAC to the board, you're looking at a 30 to 45 day window there for final award. So,
I think I had some dates in one of my documents, maybe. Might have been some handwritten
Daniel?
document.
And
Go ahead,
Daniel,
Chelsea.
in the RFP, why don't we back into the worst case scenario, like pushing up against the deadline if there is a transitionary period? And then that way we can back in and give some wiggle room, and because we have, based on the RFP, response deadlines for questions and other deadlines that the committee might not be aware of. So why don't we pencil in some dates backing in, like you said, and then tell them where that falls.
okay. I'll work with that because I know Randy will probably have a rough tentative timeline of what it all takes. And I'll make sure that's posted in the file as well.
Wonderful. Good question.
But yeah, there's a lot more. There's more red tape behind it than we all see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
promise.
okay.
And I want to make sure we capture all that front, instead of having that last minute, we got to get this done.
Like this has got to go out in May, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's,
That's what I thought we were talking about at one point, but memories can fail.
It's gotta push out no later than May, because at the beginning of May, then you're gonna have to advertise for a minimum of 30 days, give or take. And then things received, there's a question period that is allowable, then there's a whole lot more behind it.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think-
just getting it through our approval process after we've said this is the one that we want to propose and move it forward through. Because it'll have to go through you for, this is the recommended contract, then it'll go to P-PAC, then it'll go to the board. And depending on which days those fall on, it take a minute.
yeah, I think I calculated around Memorial Day in my initial review, backing it out, but now with all the other pieces involved, I see I need to get moving on this yesterday. Yeah,
Sooner rather than later, because that way we can build in a little bit of error.
okay.
Things happen. All right. Outstanding work, Danny, excuse me. Anything else?
Nothing from me.
Okay.
This is
I
Dean
have a
again.
question.
I had a question too, but so someone else go first, then I'll,
Well, I just want to know what the status of the speed bump is.
it's a speed hump.
Yes,
Hump.
excuse me. Have we let the
Reduction
contract, is it that
device.
far along, or are we still in the permit stage? I just didn't know where it was.
We're expecting, we had a meeting a couple of days ago with the designer. We're expecting to have the drawings submitted to the city if I'm not mistaken, it's either the end of this week or the end of next week for permitting. So
In the next week, 90%
next week.
design.
So it hasn't gone into the city yet, but it's close.
And is there a timeline after that? I mean, we're gonna see this by Christmas or
What
the
year?
summer?
We're hoping, fingers crossed, we're going to get this implemented this fiscal year, constructed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, once I get the 90% design, that's close enough for what I need to get out there and start soliciting proposals. And then we'll work that through the pipeline for approval.
Okay.
So I did have a question, I'm sorry, and I hope it's a quick one, but when we start talking about the pools that are not in the town center and the rover observing and reporting and getting a letter on letterhead from the respective HOA, COAs to acknowledge at least that we're going to be observing and reporting. Is there any concern about the rover missing something that happened when he wasn't there? You know, that the HOA, COA comes after the district and the rover for not observing kids in the pool at, in the middle of the night. Is there a concern there or liability?
This is Danny. I would, based on previous experience, I would say no, because a rover, the definition of rover is patrolling. But if we have a point there, a stopping point for the rover to check in, he or she is required to make that notice or punch his card or whatever that device they use. And if the HOA has a camera, and I know Palazzo does, if they say there was something going on at 7 o'clock at night and the rover was there at 7 o'clock at night and they didn't report it, it's not it's a violation of the contract that they can be cited for or fined, but not something that would be a liability, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because the HOA, like I said, I bring Palazzo, they also have the same capabilities, or they have the remote capabilities of monitoring their facility. And they can take additional precautions and actions to get that same notification with activity motion sensors.
Is that something that Tony would then end up having to put into the contract perhaps?
Yes, the attorney at the review would have to indicate that primary responsibility still falls solely on the HOA in maintaining the security of their entity, the amenity.
So
The
we're
rover-
basically an extra set of eyes.
That's with, again, the rover is to patrol and observe. If he doesn't see lights on in there and there's no reason to stop unless we have a point for him to stop. And again, it's just been looking, if someone's hiding behind the wall, it's not his responsibility to search them out unless he sees activity, but then becomes a police action.
Dean, to your point, and when this is a very fine line that we're walking with regards to making sure that we're defining what observing and reporting is.
Yes.
And so, of course, we'll have the attorney review it and make sure that we're not exposed.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. Well, that's what concerned me as well. So thank you.
Anything else?
I have nothing.
Do I hear a proposal to adjourn?
This is Daniel Clemens. I make a proposal. We adjourn today's meeting.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
All opposed? All right, we adjourn at 10:10. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
You
Thanks
too.
all.
Bye, Bob.